Hey everybody, Tech Talk Tuesday. Today will be our Halloween edition. This is my mask, it's my outfit. I'm dressed as an old man that raced motorcycles and built engines for his whole life. Hey Ron, this is Tech Talk number 169. 169. Hey Jimmy, I have a board to show you that stuff that I will get to in a little bit, but I moved over here by Blue 50 to show you a little bit of ideas about deck height and the way I understand it. And I'm glad you guys are tuned in. Hey Greg, hey Marty, thank you Ron. I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I'm gonna do my best to do some of this on the cuff, off the cuff, on the fly. It's like stand-up comedy, except for I'm not trying to be funny, but sometimes, even when I'm not trying to be funny, I am. So I'm going to switch this over to the engine right now, and I just wanted to come in and say hi and tell you this is Tech Talk Tuesday 169. This is the last one before Halloween. So I did wear my Halloween socks, which I'll show you in a minute. But while I got the camera set up right here, I'm going to switch over to the engine. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hey Brian, hey John, hey Marty. All right, I hope you can see. Pay no attention to the background, the old ugly chair that I sit in when nobody's looking. But this is a 4600 bore Milwaukee 8, and I have a really cool tool here that I'm gonna try and share with you guys. This is a dual indicator deal I can check deck height with. I'm supposedly going to set this on 0, and I'm going to set this other one on 0, and I'm using the deck of this cylinder to set it. And I got both of them, and I'm going to do it for the purpose of this video. I'm going to get everything within a thou best I can. This one I could move a little bit. All right, up and down, up and down to 0 it out. All right, I got this one on 0 and I got this one on 0. So I'm gonna move over to the rear cylinder, and before everybody freaks out over this, these little, I put some vice grips on here that are only have 1 foot-pound of torque on them, and they don't leave marks on the cylinders. But I got them here because this bridge, this dial indicator deck height bridge that I have, is not quite good enough. The magnets aren't good enough, or this sleeve is not big enough for me to fasten the little magnets that are on this bridge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, now that we know these were on 0, I didn't change them, I set them on 0 on the deck, and now I'm going to try my best to let you see both of these. All right. And I hope you can see them. As you'll see, wherever the piston's sitting right now, these are not 0 again. But I'm going to show you how to fix it. If you look close, I have this. I have the base missing the deck, so this piston can move. It can rock without hitting the base. I have this base just barely off of it, where the base will not affect the piston rocking. So I'm going to go and I'm going to lean on I'm going to check the back deck first. I'm going to lean on this piston just a little bit, and I'm going to rotate the crank up and down across the deck. All right, I'm getting really close to, have a really, these are cool. You don't have to have it. You see the little red mark I put on the indicator? I used a dry erase to put a little red mark there so you can see that's as low as that piston will go on that side. And if I lean on the front, it will go to that red mark on the back. So what I'm showing here is like 11, I'm 10 or 11 here, and I'm showing like 5, 10, 15, 20 on this side of 0. So what I have done, let's do it again. Let it look at the dial indicator, not my hand. Thank you. Anyway, I'm close to that 0 on this side, and I'm close to this 0 on this side. Now, this little red mark, please forgive me for not being so accurate here. This little red mark I put on here and this little red mark I put on here, those indicate the high and the low. So I counted how many degrees, how many thousandths there is between these red marks, and I made a mark in between. I counted exactly how many it was. It was 32. Half 32 is 16. So 16 from this mark is where this red mark is, and 16 from this mark is where this red mark is. I added them up, split the difference. No reference to 0. I just have, this is where the piston rocks to right here. That's where this one comes to here. And that's where it goes to here. So I've got the lowest it will go and the highest it will go. And it's about 32 thou difference between them. And I split it in half as 16. So I counted 16 from this one and put a mark. And I counted 16 from this one and I put a mark. And now that means, if you'll look, since I did zero this, you can see that my deck is 3 thousandths in the hole. This little red mark is 3 thousandths away. So this deck averages, even though it's 20 up this way and 20 down this way, I did the math and got it to where halfway between this mark and this mark came out right here on this red mark, which is 3 in the hole. Now, that's the back of the piston. So now let's do the front of the piston. Same show. I'm gonna lift up on the front of the piston as high as I can. See that mark right there I put on? I got a little marker, and then I'm gonna go over here and push it down as far as I can, and I got a little marker, and I added those up, and halfway between that mark and that mark is also here, and that says that it's 2 out of the hole. So this piston right here, you guys, this piston, the back is 2 in the hole and the front is 2 out of the hole. So this deck height on this piston is 0. That's the average between the front and the rear is 0. Does that make sense to you? If not, let's discuss. Tell me what you're thinking about it. I'm going to move this now and go to the next subject, but I wanted to share that with you guys so you could see what I was trying to do there. Anyway, we cut 41 off of this one and 39 thou off of this one to get the deck that good on them. So they both are measuring 0 now, and I'm going to run a 40 thou head gasket, so that will give me 40 thou piston head. Another thing I've shown several times this week is I bought a Hayabusa wheel, brake, caliper, and the sprocket carrier off the internet. Mike Balin at A1 sourced all that for me, and then he made the adapters, the spacers. He made this little caliper adapter and this really cool little rod end. So now, if you'll step back and look, you can see that I'll save 30 pounds, maybe 20 pounds. And I know there's lighter wheels, y'all. This is a heavy wheel, but listen, it is nothing heavy like this monstrosity right here. This is a giant heavy wheel and brake and a big old heavy caliper, and it's held on with this little, the caliper is locked in place with this plate that's welded on the swing arm. Well, Track Dynamics did the same thing. They welded this plate on the swing arm. And Jackie found us a really nice, cool piece in our junk pile. If you look back around there, you can see that right here, yep, that little deal hangs it. I talked about that a little bit. Going back to the board now, let's go to the board. I got more stuff to share, and I wrote some notes that I want to go over. First thing I want to say is, thank y'all so much for tuning in. And this is Tech Talk Tuesday. Tech Talk Tuesday, number 169. Thank y'all for watching. Hey, Ron. Hey, Bruno. I got a lot left to go. But I did find my cross finally. This is the one I had on 140 or 150 Tech Talks. And I found it today. So I said, I'll put it back on my board where I used to have it a long time ago. It's pretty cool. And this is my goal, 975, foot shifting hand clutch on Blue 5.0. Which I'll share that with you as we go. Got plenty to do with it yet. All right. Halloween socks. There they are. People ask me all the time about my socks, so I had to show you that. All right, I put why is air and fuel going in the engine? Well, let's talk about that for a minute. When the piston goes down, let's move back over here so I can use this as an example. This is a great example. Yeah, stock transmission, stock clutch, stock rods, stock lifters, stock rock arms. It's a stretch, y'all. And I'm going to tell you in a little while, don't do it. Don't use what I'm using. This is an experiment. This is a serious experiment. I am going to run a chain drive, but I am going to run a bone stock tranny. I haven't even looked at it. I'm going to run a stock crankshaft that Stanley Gardner at GRC honed the rods out where to have a little bit of clearance where they won't seize up on me. But it is a stock set of rods and a stock 4.375 stroke crankshaft. But the reason the air goes in the engine is when we're sitting here and this engine's running, the piston goes down. And I want you to know that this amount of area, this bore and stroke, it's 4.6 bore, 4.375 stroke, is a ton of area. And when you're just sitting here and this piston says, I'm going to go down and the intake valve's open, this void right here, this amount of cubic inches, I think it's, 72 cubic inches right here. 72 cubic inches when this piston goes down, it creates such a draw on the cylinder head when the valves are open. So it's going to come in here, and this intake port is going to flow a ton when these valves open, because the only reason air goes in here is because the piston is going to move away from here, and it's going to have a depression that is serious, because the outside here, God's atmosphere today is 2980, and so this pressure is going to be standing on the back of these valves, and when that piston starts going down and these valves open, the negative pressure inside the cylinder is so huge negative that the pressure outside just shoves the air in. And it's not because of a flow bench or whatever, but this is normally aspirated. And why does air and fuel go in? Well, I'm going to tell you. If you have a turbocharger, that means that there's a big pressure sitting on the back of the intake valves. If you have a supercharger, there's big pressure sitting on the back of the intake valves. When the piston goes down and the valves open, whatever is outside of the valves, whatever is outside the cylinder head, is going to shove it into the engine. And it's up to us to have the cam timing set up to where we can trap it. And that's why I put this word trapping, so I could talk to you about that for a minute. I wanted to talk to you about when the air goes in the engine and we slam the valve shut. People ask me all the time, what intake valve closing do you need, George? Well, it's a moving target. It's 1 RPM. There's one intake valve closing for every scenario. At 3,000 RPMs, you need an intake valve closing that will be, this is when it's right. When the piston's coming back up on the compression stroke and the intake valve is already open and it starts closing, when the pressure in that cylinder equals what's outside and what's underneath, what's on top of the piston and what's outside the cylinder heads, when that pressure equalizes in the cylinder, you want to snap the valve shut right there. That's when you do the best trapping. Problem is, at 4,000 RPM is a different number. At 5,000 RPM, it's a different number. At 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, even at 10,000 RPM, you need a different intake valve closing number. And it's not about the compression ratio. It's not about the cranking compression ratio. It's not about the static compression ratio. That's not included in any of what I'm talking about. I'm telling you, wherever you want to make the peak torque or the peak pressure in your cylinder, it will be, the trapping will be done with the intake valve closing, not the compression ratio. That is such a small piece. That is such a small piece. How big the bore is, how long the stroke is, and how big the valves are, and when they close is what dictates this torque curve. Now I'm going to move over to a make-believe dyno sheet that I drew. And I'm not happy with the glare again. That's better. All right, I drew, maybe this will work. That's a little better. I drew a dyno sheet, typical dyno sheet, where we have the torque curve, We have the horsepower curve, and you've seen me do this a lot. I also drew this little box down here that some of you are lucky enough to get with your dyno sheet, where it has air-fuel ratio, and you can get the dyno operator to put this little dotted line on the air-fuel ratio where the target air-fuel is. Say it's 13:1, say it's 12:9, say it's 13:2. It's wherever it makes the most power, and it's the safest to run on the highway with the fuel you are using. This motorcycle, this big blue 5.0, it's going to be using some really good octane, like 110 octane. So I'm not worried about detonation as much. I'm going to try and trap as much air fuel in it as I can to build the compression ratio really high. Not the compression ratio, the cylinder pressure. Please don't quote me on compression ratio. See this torque line? It starts falling off the higher we rev it. But I had a guy send me this the other day, and I lost the paper sheet that I could print and put on here, but this is what it looked like. It had a really nice horsepower curve, had a really nice torque curve, and he said, this is what, when the shop put my Star Racing 3030 cam in, this is what the baseline run did, which that was nice, but it was down about 10 foot-pounds. It was down about 10 horsepower, but it's pretty good. But if you'll look, this air-fuel ratio, I think I drew it in purple maybe, I don't know, I'm almost colorblind, or really am colorblind, but this air fuel line, you can see how far away from the target it is. Like this might be 13:1, this might be 15:1, and the higher he revved it, the closer it got to the target air fuel. So when you see this on the dyno, the guy's got to go in on the computer, and he's got to go over here to 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 RPM, and he's got to change the fuel. Got to change the ignition, the injector time. That right here, he's going to have to add 20, 30% of fuel. Right here, he's going to have to add about 20% here. He's going to have to add about 10% here. And a guy that's really good on the dyno knows this. And when you get down here to peak horsepower, it's only off probably 4 or 5%. But when he finished, the finished dyno sheet that he sent me, after they finished, the air fuel ratio looked like this, where the guy that tuned it for them did a really great job, and he got rid of this curve. And what he ended up doing was he ended up having to add 20 to 25% fuel at low RPM and 5 or 10% fuel at high RPM, but he got the air fuel ratio straight. Okay, that's all great. He wins. What did that do over here? It made that horsepower line. What did it do up here? OMG. Just by getting this right, he picked up all this power. He picked up all this torque. And the reason is because whatever base map he used, it was probably for an SE torque cam or an SE power cam. And what he installed was a Star Racing 3030 cam. And the reason the 3030 cam gains 40 horsepower and 20, 30 foot-pounds of torque over these cams is because it is not EPA regulated. We are not controlled by the government to tell us what kind of event timing we can have with opening and closing. This particular cam right here, I looked it up today, it has 197 degrees duration. This one has about 215. This cam right here has, no overlap at all. The intake valve opens after TDC. The exhaust valve closes before TDC, so it has no overlap. And it doesn't allow the engine to have that nice Harley sound, because we love it to make this power curve, we love it to make this much torque, and we also love to hear that lope. And that lope comes from these items that we're talking about. But what this all boils down to is this trapping. The 3030 camshaft was able to trap so much air and fuel that it took the cylinder pressure, and the engine had 10.5 to 1. It might have had some cranking number. I don't know what the cranking pressure was, but let's say it had 10.5 to 1. By changing the camshaft timing, we were able to move the cylinder pressure from here to way up here without changing the compression ratio. We were able to do it by trapping more air and fuel in the engine and make a lot more power. So the goal with Blue 5.0 over here is that giant bore, that big 4,600 bore, is to create more depression, more pressure differential inside the engine when the piston goes down, so that the atmosphere outside will fill the cylinder more pressure. And then my cam timing that we're going to use, I'm going to open the intake valve at the right time, I'm going to close it at the right time, and I'm going to trap that mixture in there to make the horsepower level go way up. Now, it may have 13-to-1 compression, it may have 200, 300 cranking compression, I don't know, but I don't check that stuff. All I do is get the air fuel right, and I get the horsepower and torque curve right. Now, I also made a quick note here on my page that I wanted to just give you my opinion. Please understand, you guys, all of this is what George thinks he knows. This is not the gospel. This is not me saying this is the only way, but this is what I think I know. I wrote down wastegate because it made me think of a deal today when I was explaining to a young man when he was telling me about the flow bench and working on the exhaust port, and he puts these really nice shapes. Like when he ported the head, he put this big radius on his valve job, and he put this big radius into his port, and it picked up a bunch of flow on the flow bench. Now, when you have anybody ever experienced trying to get a wastegate open? And wastegate goes on a turbo exhaust system when you have so much exhaust pressure that you need a valve that will open and regulate the pressure that's in there. Our exhaust valves are like wastegates. These are little wastegates right here. When the pressure inside this cylinder is giant and we're finished pushing on the crank, we're finished pushing the piston down, we need to open this valve, and we need these to be two little wastegates that blow the pressure down as quick as it can. And it doesn't need to be flowed at 28 inches because this is got 500 to 1,000 PSI in here. 28 inches might let you see a couple PSI. But if you've changed this shape and the valve shape to get really, really good and low speed numbers, and I'm talking about 28 inches of pressure on the flow bench, you can hurt your performance by not giving it a good shape of a, get you a chance and go look at a TIAL or a TIL. I forgot the name of it. There's some high-end wastegates, and their only goal in life is to blow the pressure down instantly. And when you're doing this on this engine at 6,000 RPM, we're blowing this exhaust down 58 times a second. And the pressure builds up giant in here 58 times, and we blow it down 58 times a second at 6,000 RPM. So when you look at the Pro Stock guys that are running, 10,000, some of the Suzuki guys running 13,500, they're blowing it down way faster than that. 12,000, I think it's blowing it down 116 times a second. It's hard for me to imagine in my mind that the piston's going up and down that many times. But it does, and so does the intake pressure coming in, because there's less pressure in the cylinder when the piston goes down, the intake valve's open, and it goes up and down and in and out so many times, and this does too. So before I get all broke and stuck on that, I wrote this down too to tell you guys, yes, I am building a Milwaukee 8 with a 4,600 bore. Don't do it. I am not doing it in order to sell you pistons. I'm not doing it in order to sell you cylinders. I'm not doing it in order to talk you into it. This is not a bolt-on deal. You guys, I've been working for a long, long time to make the pistons fit each other. Been working a long time to make the cylinders fit the cases. This is not what you want. If you can build a 4.5 bore, it will be a 143. This engine, if you do a 4.5 stroke with a 4,500, you're going to have a 143. If you build a 4.5 bore with a 4.375 stroke like I got in Blue 5.0, you can have a 139. It's only 3 or 4 cubic inches difference. It is not worth the trouble because we only get 1 horsepower per cubic inch. 1.5 on a real high-end Milwaukee 8, 1.5 horsepower per inch. So if you work this hard to make this fit and you're going to pick up 3 cubic inches, that's going to be, what the heck is 3 cubic inches? 3 to 6 horsepower. No, 3 to 4 horsepower, 3 to 5 horsepower, and that's too much work for 3 or 5 horsepower. I can drive better. I can shift on time in order to gain what you lost here. Why did I do it? I wanted to do the most I could. I wanted to run the biggest wheel I could that didn't weigh too much, that wouldn't cost me an arm and a leg. I wanted to run the biggest piston I could on the stock crankshaft. I wanted to run, and I don't run roller rock arms on this. Listen. If you need roller rock arms in your Milwaukee 8, you got the wrong camshaft. My camshaft is made to run with a 1/6 rocker. And also, you can't beat this wear. There is no friction going on here. There is nothing wearing here. The top of the valve is beautiful. The rock arm is beautiful. And this has 10,000 miles on it. Yeah, it's stock, but there's no reason for me to change this. The geometry looks beautiful. It's in the right place. The pad is perfect. The wear is perfect. So if I change the length of the valves and change the rock arms and sync the valves and all that kind of stuff, this geometry is going to change, and the rock arms need to go up and down. And back in the day when we were kids, we saw roller rock arms for sale. Crane was selling roller rock arms. Comp Cam sell those stainless roller rock arms. And now S&S sells rollers for this. I'm not a fan because I don't need roller rockers for this. Some people want them and can afford them, and that's great. And I'm not telling you, don't buy them. I'm telling you, I'm not going to run them. I'm going to run the stock rock arm because my camshafts that I sell at Star Racing are designed to run with a 1/6 rocker. You don't need a 1/63 or a 1/64 or a 1/62 rock arm. If you did, you would change the camshaft to suit this. You wouldn't change the rock. If you have to put more rocker ratio in it, you need a different cam. That's my opinion. Hey, that's what Tech Talk Tuesday is. All of this is my opinion. Now, it's not an argument. It's okay to have a discussion about it, but I'm pretty much done with that today. Thank you guys again. Tech Talk Tuesday. So much fun. I love it. That was 169. Guess what? Next week, Monday's Halloween. Happy Halloween, everybody. Hey, look out for everybody. We need help keeping up with each other, man. Nobody's going to look out for us if we don't. And also next week will be 170 weeks in a row, man. How cool is that? Thank y'all. Tech Talk Tuesday 169 is out. I appreciate y'all. Send me emails, send me voicemail, send me technical questions, george@starracing.com. You can also message me on my Facebook. And another thing I want to say, this is just my last little piece. When I read comments on, I think it's called that over there where we do the, on Instagram and stuff, people say, George has been doing that for 169 times, 169 weeks, and he still doesn't know how to mount the board on the wall. He's still laying the board down. Well, let me tell you why. I'm left-handed, and I can't draw and I can't write unless I rest this hand on the board. And when it's up in the air or up on the wall, I shake around a lot because I'm 68 years old, and this gives me the stability I need to do a pretty good job. So thank y'all for that. That's the answer why my board isn't mounted yet. I'm not going to mount it. Good night. God bless y'all.